All right, well, welcome again. My name is Kevin Ross, and I'm the founding chairman of Washington First Robotics. And the intent of tonight's volunteer briefing is to tell you about the things that we are considering having to do with recruiting key volunteers to help us run the FIRST program in the state of Washington. I really appreciate your efforts and your willingness to step forward and be one of those key volunteers, and I hope that you will find this as rewarding as we do. Just to make sure everybody's clear on, we have this mission. Our mission is to inspire students to be science and technology leaders. And so for us, it's more than just the core fact that the kids are interested in going into science and technology. We very much value the fact that they're also going to be leaders in this field. And by leaders, we mean people that can work with teams and work with others to accomplish great things. And that's a very key component of FIRST that sometimes people overlook, but it's going to come apparent to you why I pointed that out here in just a few minutes. So my goal for today is I want to share a little bit of the institutional knowledge about FIRST of Washington, and the reality is Pacific Northwest FIRST. So I know that I'm going to say the word FIRSTWA a lot. This really applies to all of our programs and includes our reach into Oregon. We're sort of one big happy family, Washington and Oregon, and so but our nonprofit is called FIRSTWA, and we do actually quite a few things up here in Washington State that we don't necessarily reach into Oregon with. However, so don't take any offense if you're from Oregon. I mean all of us. Okay. I'm going to talk about what it's going to take for us to continue FIRST and continue the incredible growth that we're going under. And I also want to talk a bit about what it's going to take for us to develop a community of leaders that can really sort of spread the workload around the volunteers and keep the quality of our programs really high. And then I invite you to tell us how we can improve. There's a small group of us who have a lot of experience at this, but honestly, we're probably a little bit set in our ways at this point. And yeah, we'll kick and scream and bitch a little bit, but we really do appreciate any input you have on what we can do better and maybe better ways for us to model what's going on. Okay. FIRST is completely volunteer driven, and I'm always impressed by this slide. The event volunteers put in about 39,000 man hours a year running our events. That's 950 people, averaging somewhere around 39 to 40 hours, or about 42 hours, I think is what the average is. It's a lot, and it's a very impressive statistic. And, we're also humbled by the fact that we have 1,542 mentors in our state, just in the state of Washington. I don't have these stats for Oregon, but you can extrapolate. It's probably about the same. They contribute 160,000 hours working with the students on the teams. And so the reason I wanted you to understand this was, this is a very large program. It involves a very, very large number of people, most of whom are very engaged with their teams, but may not be as engaged with driving the community. And that's fine. We're fine with that. But the impact that we have as key volunteers is really, really important. Okay. So what is it that we're doing with all of these volunteers? In 2013, we're going to do 53 events. I can't believe I just said that. There are only 52 weeks. However, we're doing 53 events. And you can see the list there. We have a whole lot of things going on. We're running 13 FLL regional qualifiers and 2 championships. We have FIRST Tech Challenge is also run by FIRSTWA. And so we've got 5 events there. We've got the 3 events in Washington State, the FRC regionals and the Portland regional. And again, we're very interchangeable in the FRC department. We have 5 kickoff events, 16 workshops, 2 major fundraisers, and what we would consider 7 major public outreach events. That's a lot of stuff, and we're really proud of the fact that we're able to pull that off. But at the same time, as you'll see on the next slide, we're starting to get a little tired, and so we need some help. In addition to that, in 2014, we're going to increase the number of FRC events. We're going to add 7 events, if not 10 events. I'm being conservative with the 7, but we're going to start running district model events, which is going to really kind of step up the involvement that we've got. So if you're thinking that there are few opportunities in FIRSTWA, you would be completely incorrect. We need people to handle a whole lot of stuff. So this just sort of shows you the scale of what's going on, and you know the scale of our growth is actually pretty impressive. I have a slide here, and again, these are just the Washington State teams because I don't have a good handle on the numbers in Oregon. But as you can see, FRC is growing at a pretty steady rate. First Tech Challenge is starting to accelerate a bit. You can see a little bend in the graph there. Lego League has been also kind of increased a little bit in 2011. Luckily, it slowed a little bit, but the growth rate is back to normal again. But we have 419 teams in the state this year, and of course, Junior First Lego League is taking off like crazy. I'd like to tell you that we've grown as far as we're going to be able to grow, so we know how many volunteers we need and how much effort is going to be required. But the reality is that, as you can see by these charts, this growth has been going on for quite a while, and at this point, we don't really see it slowing down much for probably 4 or 5 years. It just seems to be a very, very steady growth rate, which is great. We're starting to get a whole lot more people involved, and especially the students, of course. We're getting a whole lot more students involved, which is driving towards our mission. However, it is getting to the point where it's now time for us to beef up our ability to manage all of this, because almost all of us are indeed just volunteers. Let me, a little bit of history. There's a about 10 years ago, we all sort of, or some of us started meeting at this guy named Larry Borello's house, and Larry Borello's kitchen table is probably going to be one of the first things inducted into the first Washington Hall of Fame. It's sort of where things got started, and so there was a group of us who would meet at Larry's like once a month, and we were doing something incredible. We had 18 teams the first year, back in 2002. There were for the 2003 season, there were going to be 18 FLL teams. And our job as a group was to run that 18-team FLL event. And we put an enormous amount of effort into it, and it was a lot of fun, but at the same time, it was, it was very engaging and a little bit daunting because we'd never done that before. So there are a bunch of us from that original group. In fact, here they are. I hesitated to put this chart up, but I just want you to realize sort of who the key people are. As you can see, and I've put up our current titles, by the way. So I'm Kevin Ross, of course, the chairman, FRC regional chair, and I was also the FLL operational partner, and I was also the FTC affiliate partner at one point. So, we've been doing this for quite a while. Kevin Reed. Kevin, you're here, right? Did you mute yourself?
I'm here, yeah.
Yeah. So Kevin Reed is our FLL operational partner. That's his sort of current title. He's also been the judge advisor for FRC for many, many years, world judge advisor as well, and a huge part of the community. And he was also actually, were you the original FRC chair in Seattle, or was that Howard?
Way back when we were WeTalk, Washington Engineering and Technology Outreach Committee or something like that. Way back, yeah. That's
right. So he's also been an FRC regional chair. And of course, most of you will probably know who Eric Stokely is. He isn't on the line tonight, but he's Eric is a perennial person as well. Susan Martucci. Susan, you're here, right?
Yes, I'm here.
Susan is our volunteer coordinator, and has again been with us since 2002. I don't think Paul's here tonight, but Paul Rausch. I wasn't even sure how to put him on here, so I just made him senior volunteer. He's another one of the people that's been around since 2002 and has had pretty much every role that we've got to do. And I'd be remiss if I left out Larry Borello, who we'll call him senior volunteer emeritus. He's since moved on to do amazing things with robotic parachutes for the military. But you know, all of this sort of really got started by the six of us, and there have been a ton of people to come and go from around the Larry Borello table and the virtual Larry Borello table since then. So I don't want to diminish anybody's contributions by any stretch of the imagination, but I just wanted you to kind of realize that this was the original group of people that sort of got all of this kicked off in our state. And it turns out that we're all still here.
Do we know why we're still here?
I think
do we have to go back to the mission? Okay.
Yeah, Larry slipped us something. I don't know what it was. And then we also have William Schulten, who's our JFL partner. William's a little newer, but he is also our other key senior volunteer, and he, like so many of us, puts in thousands of hours doing this every year. So I did have a slide, and I decided not to put it up. I tried to come up with the definitive list of our other key volunteers. Some are on the line here tonight, like Heidi Lovett and Alita Mendez and Andy Gephardt and Kathy Saxton, and there are a lot of key people, and Leo's here, who this program doesn't run without, and it turns out to be a fairly substantial list of very, very amazing people. So the reason I'm pointing all this out is we are this core group of the most senior people who have been around the longest, plus a group of at least 40 or 50 other people who have really been running things for a long time. We've been doing this for so long that we've gotten ourselves a little bit entrenched, and it's time for us to open it up and bring in new people who are going to have the energy and the drive to really move all this forward. Okay, so why does all of this work? And the reason all this works is we very early realized that we needed to incorporate all of the programs together as a group. And so we, foolishly or not, I'm not sure, we took on the responsibility for running all 4 programs: Junior First Lego League, Tech Challenge, Robotics Competition, okay? And so all of us are really dedicated to the success of all these programs. And so when you see these little titles here, the reality is that we all do all programs. And I think that that's really, really helped us keep a very cohesive group together, and it's helped us establish a very large volunteer base, and it also has helped us cross-train. For example, we all cut our teeth on First Lego League. We did several years of First Lego League events before we took on First Tech Challenge. We also had done several years of FLL contests before we took on FRC on our own. And so I think that that's really helped us be successful in growing the program across the state. And actually, it turns out, and we're pretty proud of this actually, is FIRST nationally is trying to get all of the other states to do what we do because we've been very successful at it. And we're pretty proud of that. And I think it's sort of a really nice feather in our cap. The whole thing does come with some risks, though. And so the risks to our success are, well, we manage all four programs, and we have the same people running all 4. And to add a little problem to that, the program growth is continuing to grow, and again, there's no sort of end in sight. So, so how is this going to apply to you? So what we're looking to do is we're looking to we are looking to increase the number of people that we could call on and who are dedicated enough that you would be able to go out and run an event without one of us. And we really want to get to that point. We really want to get to the point where there's more regional control and more people who are willing to dedicate a weekend or 2 or 3 a year, plus the planning that goes into that, to do really high quality FIRST events for all of our kids. Right now, it's the core group of us are the ones doing, are kind of the ones organizing and implementing all of these programs, and that's not sustainable in the long term. So that is what we're after. We are hoping that you as a group are going to be willing to take on 1 or 2 of these events and kind of own it and enjoy it as much as we do. Okay. So I'm gonna kind of a strange little switch gears here. I just want to tell you about we have sort of 4 types of volunteers, and you are going to end up fitting into some of these, right? So we kind of have 4 classes of volunteers. We have the certified volunteers, and they are trained by FIRST for specific roles. And it turns out that 3 of the 4 programs have specific trainings for these roles, right? So like head referees, field technical advisors, judge advisors, those sorts of roles. And there we're relying on those people to own that area. And so they will be trained by FIRST, FTAs for FRC, for example, or even flown back to New Hampshire as our head referees, robot inspectors. They all receive training from New Hampshire. And then it is up to those groups to turn around and advise and train the volunteers, the other volunteers, if you will. Okay. We also have trained volunteers, and those are trained by us. Some of them are trained by the certified folks. Some of them will be trained by those of us who know how to do field operations and such, and setting up the AV, setting up the fields, doing pit admin, and those sorts of activities. The other 2, which are awesome, and the reason that the program works, are our adult volunteers. We have judges and referees and sort of key administrative positions. And then we also have our awesome student volunteers who do a whole lot of stuff for us. But the reality is that we are looking for key volunteers to take on the 2 top tiers of these 4 classes. And there's a lot of variety in what happens. Okay. But I think if you go back to our original reason for success, in that we're able to do all 4 programs. We're able to cross-inject all of the qualities of each program into the entire FIRST ecosystem. You'll notice that I didn't put in head FRC referee and FLL referee or any of these positions. What we're looking for are people who are willing to sort of work across projects, work on maybe do an FLL event, maybe an FTC event in their area, or and FRC or and JFLL. And I think that's part of why we've been successful. I think that's part of why we're looking for people who would like to own these sort of key roles. Okay. I am fire hosing you. Has anybody got any questions so far? Kev, Susan, do you need to butt in here?
I'm good.
You're good?
No, you're doing great.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, so what is it? So, these are the types of volunteers. What is it we're looking for from our key volunteers? We're looking for people, well, quite frankly, who have some experience with FIRST at some level. I think it would be difficult to drop somebody who's never ever been involved or never seen a FIRST event. They can do it, but I wouldn't drop them in as a key volunteer. We're really looking for people who are willing to, or who have been through the program and sort of understand the nuances of what it means to be in part of FIRST. we're looking for people who are gracious and professional, and this is really, really critical for us. It's the key volunteers are the ones that sort of set the tone for the entire event. And I'll be honest, I have gone to other parts of the country to help with events, and I have seen what happens when key volunteers don't really meet that bar, and it really makes for a crappy event. If the tone gets set wrong, it sort of permeates the building, if you will. So, I think the ability to be gracious and professional and really acknowledge the fact that you need to be that way, and you need to work with people to to help them do the right thing. I think that is really, really critical for us. And we're also, we need our key people to be able to work with completely untrained volunteers. For example, field FTAs end up working with field reset people who have never actually seen the game before. They end up working with queuing people who have never seen a first game before, right? Brand new judges, brand new referees, brand new queuing people. These are all people who have come in and dedicated their day and sometimes multiple days to come and help us out. And, being able to work with these folks and be very gracious and gentle with them, yet keep our quality standards high is really an important part of a key volunteer. So, the ability to plan things is also something that we're in great need of. If you can work with a group of other people to plan an event in its excruciating detail, somebody has to figure out how many tables to order, how many chairs to order. They got to figure out where the teams are going to set up. They need to consider the safety aspects, or a whole bunch of other things that go into the planning of one of these events. We're really looking for those skills. And the ability to communicate, and especially via email, is really important to us for our key volunteers, because a lot of what we do has to do with marshaling the resources that we have available in the form of, mostly volunteers and many of them who have never done this before, being able to communicate with them and convey what it is that they're supposed to do and when they're supposed to do it is really important. And, it makes the day run a lot smoother. Okay? I am missing a slide. I hate it when that happens. Okay, but I will wing it. Well, we'll just do this. I'm missing 3 slides. Oofta. I think I hit delete when I wasn't looking. Okay, so I'll wing it. What we need to continue is we need you. We would like you to come and work with us this season. We would like you to come and work with us at, say, the FLL events, and we have a bunch of them to choose from. We have a bunch of FTC events, and we have a bunch of FRC events. And, we would like people who can walk in and pick up whatever needs to be done, if it's in your interest area. We need people that are able to help us implement these programs. And I think that's one of the real strengths that we developed by running all 4 programs is, we have people who can not only set up the AV equipment, but if they need to, they could go in and be a first judge if they, and pull that off. We need people who can, do FLL judging, and then, 2 weeks later, it turns out FTC judging isn't too unfamiliar to them, and and be kind of flexible in working together with a team of people to pull off an event. The other things that are missing off this slide is the reality is that when you look at First Lego League, I don't know if you caught the scale of First Lego League. At 419 events, or 419 teams, we're running 13 events, and some of these are actually really big. What we'd really like to do is we would like to, rather than have 1 or 2 volunteers responsible for coordinating that entire set of 13 events, we would like to break that up into maybe 6 groups of people doing 2 events each or something along those lines. And we're also looking for people who are ready to step up and lead this whole thing. Quite frankly, my hair is starting to turn gray. Kevin Reed's is turning gray faster than mine. I feel a little better about that. But I know that he, some of us. What was that?
I said that was uncalled for.
I know. I was just teasing you.
No, it's getting turned gray. No, fair enough.
Yeah, but so at some point we're going to need people that are going to be willing to step up and actually take over for us. And that's something we haven't done a really great job of. I've been so entrenched in my spot here I don't really, if I decided next week to move to somewhere else, there's nobody to take over that I've been grooming very well. And we need to do that with all of our programs. We need to make sure that we've got people who have a breadth of experience and an interest level great enough that they're willing to step in and take over for us someday. The other thing about being a key volunteer is, we're not looking for somebody to come in on a Saturday once a year and do this. We're looking for, somebody to own it. We need you to feel like, it's your project, it's your baby, right? You'll need to work with the other teams to make sure that it's all fitting together nicely. But the reality is that if you own it and you're willing to make it the highest quality event possible and do whatever it takes to do that, those are the folks that we need. Okay. The next 2 slides were actually about the district model because it turns out that our group, Washington First Robotics, has a lot of experience doing events in high schools, and we're really quite good at it. What's coming next is for First Robotics competition is we're moving away from these mega events, and we're going to start doing smaller events, probably in high schools and colleges and universities, and we're going to end up doing more of them. If you look at our state, let me see if I can bring up a map of our state. What do we got here? Oh, well, this is a map of the FRC teams, right? You can see that we've got these big clusters of teams. There's quite a number of teams kind of over here in the Spokane area, huge clusters of teams in Puget Sound. And if I expand this, and I'm sorry I don't have the Portland teams on this map yet, but Portland's got, next year we expect Portland to have around 60 teams. We expect to have about 130 teams. Idaho is expected to have probably about 30 teams. So when you add all that up, we're looking at well over 200 teams. We're going to run. That means that we need 200 spots. We need to be able to play 200 teams twice, which means that we need 400 plays. And even if we could get 40 team events, that's 10 40 team events that we need to do in the month of March. Since there are not 10 weeks in March, that means that we need a whole bunch of events running concurrently. Our current plan is to, we'll probably have each weekend 3 events. And I can see maybe weeks 1 and 2 we have events in the Spokane area. Weeks 1, 2, and 3, and probably actually week 4, we'll probably have 2 events running somewhere in Western Washington each weekend, and Portland will end up with 2 events running as well. So that's a lot of events. That is a lot of setting up and tearing down, and so we need the key people who know how to put on a good event and know how the first world works and know the culture and understand the importance of the pomp and circumstance that go into being a first event, and understand the value of that in forming a community with the students. Those are the sorts of things that we're going to need. And I don't want to send people, one group of people out for 4 or 5 weeks in a row. They're just going to burn out. So what we really need is, I think realistically, we're going to need at least 5 or 6 full crews of people, full regional crews that are willing to come in. And one of the slides that's missing is, for an FRC event, and it's actually true for all of our events, it usually takes between 4 and 6 key people per event to make it go. For FRC, for example, you need somebody as the regional chair who sort of oversees the whole thing, but you need a judge advisor, an FTA, you need, excuse me, the head referees, you need the lead robot inspector, and you need somebody to do pit administration. If we had those people, and if those are the people that you guys all end up being, we would be able to send them out to the venues, wherever the venues may end up being, and you guys would be responsible for running that event as a team. And that's basically how it works right now. When you look at the organizing committee that does Seattle, for example, there are nominally 10 or 11 people who are very actively involved with that. And it's those 6 people. I forgot volunteer coordinator, because that's the key position for all of this, actually. So now we've got 7 people. We need to send 7 people around to do this on the weekends, and we can't send the same 7 people each weekend. We need multiple sets of those. I'm not sure did that come out coherently? I think
yes.
so. It did. Okay.
Yeah, that's okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, all right. Does anybody have any questions about what I'm talking about so far? I know I'm doing this at a rather high level. Actually, I'm going to unmute Alita. Hi, Alita, I'm unmuting you. And I'm going to unmute Graham as well. There we go. I've unmuted you guys as well. You can control your own mutes.
Cool, thanks.
Oh, there she is. So, the last slide, and I swear to God it was here when I was working on it earlier. The last slide was sort of pointing out that there are opportunities here. If you've ever wanted to be one of the people down around the field doing stuff, there are distinct opportunities across all of our programs to be those people, and it is fun. There are few things quite as rewarding as driving home after a really long weekend doing this stuff and realizing how many people that you impacted that week. And I think it's one of the great prides and joy of my life, and I know it is for at least a dozen others that I including our key people who have been doing this for at least 10 years. And so what we want to do is we want to start a dialogue about how is it that we can pull this off? How is it that we can reorganize how Washington First Robotics puts together these groups of volunteers in order for it to be palatable for you as a key volunteer, and also keeping the quality standards high enough. So the very last question was for me to ask, what is it that we can do to improve this? What is it what information do you need in order to jump in on board as a key volunteer to get involved at this level? And that was a very open-ended question.
Kevin?
Yeah.
This is Heidi Lovett.
Hi, Heidi.
I would say one of the things that is probably really important is a clear job description, if you will.
Yeah.
And expectations and time commitment. Like, how much time are we talking about with each of these different things?
Okay.
If that were somehow written down or communicated, that would make it a lot easier for people to say, yes, I can do that, or no, I really don't have that much time, but I'd like to help in some other area. Sure,
absolutely. So let me touch on some of that. If I go over here to volunteer under key volunteers, whoops. We've got a fairly long list of like key volunteer roles. The reality is that some of these are more key than others. And so I will go through and remark all of those as things that I'm really looking at out of key volunteers. But we're so we do have some job descriptions. So you think that we should probably add whether they're involved in pre-planning or not, because that's really sort of the key thing, isn't it? That otherwise you're kind of there from 8 to 5, like on event day, and that's pretty easy to.
Yeah, and once something like a head referee or an FTA is trained, they're not doing any additional training. They're then going to events or helping to train others just prior to the events, right?
Yeah. So what do we need? What do you think we need to provide, Susan? Should we come up with like some guesses at how much time? I guess.
Yeah, it's going to be a little bit of a tough call. For something like the volunteer coordinator, there's not a sustained X number of hours per day so much. It's answering emails as they come in and pretty much towards the end putting in some sustained hours. But kind of having that touch base a couple times a day leading up to the event just to make sure nobody needs attention, if that makes sense. It's not a lot of time per day, but it is a lot of contact.
Sustained amount of time.
Yeah, over time, maybe being available to talk to people.
Okay.
I think that's a great way to say it. It's a short time period in that it's not every day long period, but it's a sustained period of being available to people.
Yeah, and I know one of the things
there's
that
some variability.
Yeah, and I know one of the things that Kevin Reed has done is kind of set aside, I don't know exactly how long it takes him, but half an hour or so in the morning at dark 30, because I get a bunch of email responses before he heads off to work. And then we try not to really communicate much, if possible, throughout his work day. But then I know if I leave stuff in the inbox, boom, I can, I'm going to get some sustained contact maybe the next day, within 24 hours or so. So not everything is looking for instantaneous response. You can do that if you can, but a lot of the responses can take a day to kind of accumulate and then go back out. Does that also help a little bit?
I can maybe build on that just a little bit, since you use me as an example.
Yeah, because I love seeing how early you get up to work.
The trick with all these volunteer positions, if you have other commitments outside of volunteering, is to just tend it in small bits. And the trap I fall into, and how I learned to do this, is I didn't do that for a long time, and then I'd have to spend 5 hours trying to catch up on email, and I still get into that situation sometimes. So this is something that you have to be dedicated enough to spend daily time on it sometimes over weeks. And then you won't have to do anything for months sometimes, but it is a consistent commitment, although not in large quantities.
And I would say amongst all of us, what I have noticed over a couple of years is that rather than sending one email with 5 or 6 questions, we're tending to almost ask the question in the subject line header and ask a short question. And I may send 5 emails with very specific headers and very short questions, so that the ones that can be answered right away, they do get answered right away. And the others that may take a while, it doesn't hold up the entire response to my email. Rather, the bits and pieces get handled as they can. Would you say that's kind of true as well amongst some of the constant email groups?
That's good advice no matter what you're doing.
So I guess if we bring this back to what is it that we can do to get these 12 people to sign up to do stuff? I think I think it varies on position how much time it takes you on a weekly basis, and I think volunteer coordinator is one of the more time-consuming jobs for about a month or so a year, maybe a month or two. When Kev?
No, keep going.
What was that?
Oh, okay. So the event manager, the person who's responsible for doing the venue and managing those sorts of things, I think the volunteer coordinator is also more of a longer term daily job, but it's great. It's a fun job, and all of these are. Whereas some of the other stuff, like the lead robot inspector is going to do probably a couple of trainings on the national level, will run a couple of trainings on the local level, and then is really kind of there for the event. And FTAs, there's some training at the national level. You're reading what the game is for the year. You need to understand the game rules. You'll probably spend a couple of days. Leo, what do you do? You're there. Tell us about FTAs. What sort of stuff do you do before the event? And are you muted?
He's working on here. I have him use my headset. Come here.
No headset. He heard that though.
Okay.
There he is. So Leo, for those of you who don't know, Leo is one of our FTAs, or is our lead FTA for the First Tech Challenge, and has been around FIRST for a very long time. What sort of things do you do beforehand?
A lot of it is just making sure I know what's changed this year in terms of what's going to happen at the field. What are the rules regarding especially like autonomous and scoring? And a lot of it is just spent helping other people running even side events with their making sure they know how to run the fields, making sure that the equipment's right and we have all the equipment, and making sure that all the equipment gets to the field and is there for me when I get there. So basically making sure that the field runs and making sure everything that the field needs to run is there for the match is what we do beforehand, and then the entire day is basically spent making sure that all the matches run on time and everything keeps moving.
And so it's you're not like daily answering questions or that sort of stuff. But there is some definite setup time and some training time though.
There's not a lot of actual day-to-day I have to answer questions. A lot more is just right around when matches and whatever events are coming up, just making sure that we have everything set up and we know that all the key equipment's going to make it to the match on time, and then showing up for the actual events.
Sure. Okay. And then I'm going to pick on, well, Andrew Yeckel is actually here. Are you on the phone, Andrew?
Yeah, I'm here.
So you've been
Can you hear me?
Yeah, absolutely. So you've been a head referee for FRC in the past. How much prep work is involved there before you go to an event?
So the big prep work is learning the rules. Depending on how quick you can read and how well you can study, that can take any amount of time. There's a test that you have to take that's usually about an hour or so to take the test. And then starting in February as head referee, there's a weekly 1-hour conference call similar to this with all the head refs across all the venues. And then you have a similar conference call with all of your refs maybe once or twice leading up to the event, plus additional coordination, a few emails with the volunteer coordinator and whoever's running this specific event. So all told, it's maybe a couple hours a week throughout like January, February, March.
Okay, cool. And then lead robot inspector. What sort of prep work did you end up having to do for lead robot inspector?
Well, you need to be familiar with the robot rules, so you have to be able to memorize a whole bunch of ever-changing rules that may change on the day of the event.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a training over in New Hampshire, which is fun, but it's cold. And keeping track of everything is the biggest part. So most of it is on that day. It's just getting everybody together mainly, preparing yourself to get everybody, all the other inspectors, ready to inspect during the competition. Got it.
Okay. As far as being a regional chair, which has been one of my main roles, to be a regional chair for one of these events involves I end up checking in with all of the above people and making sure that they've got what they need. I'm working to make sure that the venue is ready to go, and ensuring that I have a good grasp on how people get into the building, out of the building. I'm dealing with communicating with the teams about specifics of the venue that we're going to. I'll end up working very closely with the volunteer coordinator to make sure that we have enough volunteers. The volunteer coordinator will be working with all of the other areas to make sure that they have appropriate staffing. For example, Susan will spend a great deal of time talking to Kevin Reed to make sure that the judges are lined up. She'll take time spending with Alita to make sure that Alita has the appropriate number of inspectors. And the same thing is for queuing and all of the other things. So I think, and then I work a lot with Susan to make sure that the entire thing is ultimately going to be sort of on my shoulders to make sure all of this thing runs well. And so I try to stay very well in tune with what my key volunteers are doing, and I trust them implicitly. One of the cool things about Washington First Robotics is if I was to call these people on Sunday afternoon and said we need to do an FRC regional on Thursday, these people can actually do that. They grumble about it quite a bit, but the reality is that there's enough experience here, and we're blessed with enough experience between all of these key people that they just know how to do it because they've been well trained and well trained in terms of they've been trained either by us or by FIRST, or they just have a wealth of experience. Most of it turns out to be the wealth of experience column, actually. So the regional chair position, and we're going to need probably 10 of those for the district model events, for example. Your job is to make sure that all of this stuff, that all of the other positions are up to speed and are feeling good about what they've got. They're not blocked by anything, and everybody is sort of in tune with what the layout of the event is, what the scheduling is, and those sorts of things. And then we have a series of other lead positions that we're really in need of, and these are things like the audio video lead. It's actually we'll call it the technical director, and we've got each of our events has AV setups. We have mixing boards, we have video cameras and video switching equipment, and all this stuff sort of ties together. And how that gets set up is a little different at each venue and a little different for each event. But as the technical director and the audio and video leads are the people who need to figure out, do I have the proper equipment to do this particular event? And those are the technical director usually is going to work with the event manager and the regional chair to make sure that everybody's in tune with how many screens are going to be, how many projectors are going to be, and the needs for microphones and stuff like that, and handles getting all of that equipment lined up. It's a fun job, and you might spend 6 or 8 hours the week or two before one of these events, just making sure that that the resources are allocated properly and in place. And then so those are sort of the key roles that we're looking to field. Most of this is a labor of love, and most of this is, especially once you've done it once or twice, like I was alluding to before. The Washington First Robotics crew. I mean, we've gone in and done entire FRC events with. I think we may have. A couple years ago, I think we only met like 3 times. It was, once you've done a few of these, you can, we're not winging it, but we rely on our experience in order to be able to do these things. So what we need to do is to beef up the number of people who are capable of operating at that level is to get all of you in and to work with us through several events. Work with us through an FLL event, work with us through an FTC event. Sign up on our website to be a volunteer and let us bring you in and train you, and we will let you run the show. We will and we'll be there to help you out if you get stuck. But we did that this summer. We did that with Girls' Generation, both here and in Portland. We got it set up, and we just let the new volunteers run it. We stood off in the corner and helped when we were needed. And actually, that seems to be the best way to get all this done. Let me show you. If you go to our website, and I'd love to have all of you guys do this. Go to volunteer and event volunteers. If you click on that, you'll find that there's a link here to register yourself. If you will click there, you'll end up on our volunteer registration system. Sort of standard volunteer stuff, tell us your t-shirt size and whatever. As you can see, we have a lot of events coming up in December and January. If you are willing and able, we'd love to have you sign up for a couple of these. And if you come down and pick a general area. So there are 4 general areas that we have. There's sort of administrative, which is PID admin, volunteer coordinators, back of house logistics and support sort of things. So that's a really important area. We also have sort of the AV and sort of the show part of it. And so part of that is
Kevin, move down. You're in general skills. You need to go to role preferences.
Role preferences. I was going to say, there we go. So that's sort of the administrative area. We're also looking for judges. We need judge advisors. We have a very good training method for judge advisors. We have the best. First, we'll tell you this: we have the best judge advisors in the country here. Between Kevin Reed and Carrie Mushkin and Cynthia Stong, and we have really great judge advisors, and they're very, very good and patient at that. So we need more people just like that, and we would love to train you to do that. Field operations are people like the FTAs, referees, and scorekeeper, and those sorts of things. That's an important part of our day and our setup. Of course, then there are referees, which is very game specific, and they're kind of in field operations, but it's a slightly different category, requires a slightly different training set. Hospitality, of course, is making sure that that people are fed, our volunteers are fed, and sort of care and feeding of our volunteer crew. And then set up and tear down, and we kind of usually throw the audiovisual people in there. That is a very important part of what we're doing. So if you're interested and would like to be in one of these roles, by all means sign up for this. And if you would do us the favor, if you're one of our key volunteer applicants, we would love to have you put in right here where it says invited by name, put in just put in key volunteer, and we'll know that that you're one of us, and and we'll keep an eye out for that. I'm telling Susan this. Susan, is that a good strategy? You like it?
I got it.
Okay.
I'll be looking for those.
Absolutely.
I like it.
So sign up for some of these events, and come work with us and see if you like us. You're going to have a great time doing this. I guarantee it. We have like a 92% retention rate with all of our volunteers. I think that's pretty impressive and pretty indicative of how well things usually go with us. Okay. So plenty of opportunities, plenty of geographic areas. Sold. Okay. Kathy, I agree with you. Kathy has suggested that we put in sort of a expected amount of time for preparations, and I agree. I will endeavor to do that very soon, and that would be on this sheet. Okay.
And I've answered the questions with Aaron regarding the volunteer coordinator stuff.
Yes. Okay.
I've been monitoring that window.
Oh, thank you so much. And Heidi's asking, are you asking for people to be key volunteers in the same role across all programs? Not necessarily. In fact, the reality is that the more people who are cross-trained across areas, the better. You may find that you like doing one thing more than the other, and that's 100% okay with us. Come get experience what it takes to run one of these shows. It really is a show, right? And so if the more people that could get a broad experience, the better, right? Okay. Well, thank you all. Any other questions?
I have a quick question.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have one.
Hi, Julie.
So is there like a number of events that you would like to see us like participate in? I mean, like, I get that each event's going to take a chunk of time, but I mean, are you looking at like we want to be involved in 10 events a year, 3 events a year? I mean, that's kind of what I'm interested in.
Sure. Yeah. That's a great question. We would love you to be as involved as you can. And we have some of our key volunteers do exactly 1 event a year, and they'll do an FRC regional, and then we won't see them again for a whole nother year. So that's one side, and then kind of the other extreme is you look at somebody like Andy Gephardt or Jim Wright. They will be at pretty much every event that we have, and they're awesome, and they can fill in at almost any role. I would prefer actually to start moving us towards a model where you're doing a few events a year. I don't want to particularly pick a number, 3 or 4 or whatever, but we're trying to get out of the mode that we're currently in, where we have a small number of people who do every event, and love them to death or love us to death in reality. And some of us are crazy enough to do that, but it really isn't a sustainable thing to look at. If you look at my schedule for the year, I've got like 2 weekends off between now and April, right? It's not a sustainable model for people having a nice balanced life. So we'd love to have you do multiple events. We'd love to have you work in multiple programs as well. So if you did 3, 6 events a year, awesome. We don't expect you to do all 53. Did that come anywhere close to answering your question, Julie? Oops. Did I mute you, or did she mute herself? Oh, I'm going to unmute you. Hi, Julie. You there? Oh, okay.
There we go. Yeah, no, that's it. I was thinking, like 4 is like top of what I could probably handle per year, so I just wanted to make sure that was sufficient.
Yeah, no, and even if it was just 1 or 2, whatever works for you.
Okay.
But we are, like we said in the text of the key volunteer roles, we are looking for people who believe that they would like to do this for multiple years.
Yeah.
So
correct.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Andrew was asking, can you please show us how to navigate to the volunteer page here, Andrew? If you go to Washington First Robotics, www.firstwa.org, if you come down and click on Event Volunteers, that is a link to it, and it's going to take you off of our website to a site called Volgistics, and we're trying out a commercially available volunteer management system, so that we didn't have to write our own. We're very hopeful that this is going to work better than VIMS, but we're not convinced yet.
That would be true.
That would be true.
But we are all likely going to VIMS within a year or two, so.
Yeah, we are. VIMS is improving year after year, so they'll keep working on it. Okay. Any other questions? Okay, so with that, I don't want this to drone on for too long. I'm hoping and expecting all of our key volunteers to come in to match your calendar against the calendar that's on this page. Come when you can. Really appreciate it. The JFLL, I will give you a heads up though. The JFLL events may not give you as many cross-program training opportunities. However, it is one of the funnest events you'll ever go to. They're very short. They're from they're only like 3 or 4 hours long. You'll likely end up being a reviewer. It is the most awesome job ever. The kids are amazing. So, however, if you're looking to do video production or AV lead or that sort of a role, you'll find that JFLL probably isn't the one for you. FTC and FLL would be a far better one. And we're also, and it isn't on here yet, or it isn't on this sheet, but first robotics competition is done through a different system. It'll be done through VIM, through the first volunteer system, but we'll be emailing you about that. And if you're interested in working more with FRC, and especially on field roles, keep your ears open, and we'll let you know when to register. And again, I believe there's a referred by field in there. Is there one in there, Susan?
There is. There's a note to the volunteer coordinator, and actually VIMS is open now. So okay. It's US First / VIMS, and you guys can go ahead and start to register. And if you will, there's a note to the volunteer, or note to coordinator, or something like. There's a place where you can add a note. So if you would just let me know that you're one of these key volunteers, and that will help me with communication and placement.
Yep. And so I'm just going to log in here real quick and show you exactly what to do. So if I go for a role application and I want to,
I think you can edit the one.
Oh, I can edit this one. Yeah. Okay. So this is what it looks like. And you're welcome to add a note. I did this note just as a test, but put right here, key volunteer. And what we'll do is, especially if you would like to do technical awards, technical things down on or around the field, go ahead and sign up as this is called an FTAA. Please sign up as field supervisor or field assembly and disassembly. If you want to be involved at the referee level or game announcer level, any of these jobs are awesome. Some of them, I wouldn't go for key volunteer safety glass attendant. It may not be the role that you intended, but make sure to put key volunteer in here, and we'll watch out for you to make sure that we're giving you a role that works for you. Okay. So that again was https myusfirst.org/VIMS, and it apparently took me somewhere else. Okay. All right. What else? Did anything I missed, Susan? What else do we need?
Not that I didn't hear. So. just get people signed up and recruit your friends.
How about you, Kev? Anything?
No, that's it. We need you.
Yes,
State needs you. Our state students need you.
Oh, and yeah, and then the other thing that we'd really like you to do is to sign up to be an FLL judge at least once. There's two important reasons for that. One is that we would really like you to be an FLL judge once. I think it is it's good to see the judging process. The judging process between all three programs is fairly similar, and the more that you understand about the FIRST culture and why the FIRST works, the better. And then the second thing is that we really need somewhere around 350 to 400 adults to volunteer to be judges this year. So we would also like you to go out and, as a key volunteer, recruit one other person to be an FLL judge. So there's
and then ask them to recruit someone.
Yes.
See if we can start that pyramid scheme. We need it.
Yeah.
If we need an exponential growth curve going, we might make it. Yeah.
Yeah. We need lots. Okay. Well, with that, I'm going to say goodnight and stop the recording here. You're welcome to hang out and ask me more questions, but I'll be posting this up on the web and putting a link to this up on our website.